Okay, so once again, we're getting ready to fly the eSky Eagle. I've made a couple of small changes. I've set up a little bit of a deadband on my pan servo. It's not real twitchy around the center now like it was previously. I did that in OpenTX using a curve. Quick controls check. I also adjusted the IMU accelerometer ignore rate setting from the default of 9. I dropped it down to 7. And that was at the suggestion of Mark, who watched my previous video that I uploaded yesterday and made that suggestion. So thank you, Mark, for that. We'll see if it solves the drift issue. If you look right in the center of the OSD right now, there is a cat crossing the runway. Wait for him to get out of the way. He's right there in the center. He'll run. He'll get out the way. So yeah, let's go ahead and get armed and get out of here. Oh, another change I made. It's kind of a big change, actually. You notice how much cleaner my video is? Hopefully it's going to hold true once I power up, but we'll soon find out. Replaced the video transmitter with an actual Matek one, rather than the one I had made using the little RF module. And I noticed that actually helped my GPS a little bit. I'm getting more satellites now. So anyway, let's go ahead and get it in the air and see how it works out.
Engines armed.
So we're going to take off in acro mode and see how it goes.
Low battery. Battery critical.
See, I did see there was a little bit of noise there while I was running full power, but it calms right down at cruise throttle or even less, as you can see here. So let's go ahead and switch to cruise mode.
Altitude hold active.
Another change that I made, I recentered my pitch servo with the linkage. I manually recentered the servos. I noticed the pitch trim was running like 1648 microseconds, if I recall, which is a little higher than I liked. Wanted to get a little bit closer to 1500. So I went ahead and adjusted that mechanically. So you can see the airplane's getting rocked around a little bit. It's not terrible, but it is a little bit windy today. Notice there's kind of some rain clouds out there toward the horizon. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and gain a little bit of altitude. Climb up to around 150 or so, I guess, feet. Start leveling off now. So it should drop back down to close to 150-ish or so. That's about where I released the stick. It's close enough for me. Well, there you go. So let's go ahead and just kind of cruise around a little bit. I just want to let it fly long enough in this altitude hold to let it get an idea of where the pitch trim needs to be. And then we're going to switch back to acro.
Acro mode. Altitude hold off.
I need to get my cruise throttle set. Seems the nose is dropping a little bit, but not terribly bad.
Manual mode.
Go to manual, and yeah, the trim's holding fairly well. So this is hands-off manual mode. Still haven't touched the stick, still haven't touched it, still haven't touched it. I'm 100% happy with that. And there's a little gust of wind, knocked us off course a little bit. Still haven't touched the stick. Yeah, I'm 100% happy with that. So we'll go ahead and go back to cruise.
Cruise mode. Altitude hold active.
And we're going to just kind of go fly around and enjoy the airplane. So I guess at this point, I'm 100% happy with the video quality. All of the noise, the motor noise, and another thing that I wanted to point out, those black bands that I mentioned may be 900 megahertz noise from the crosslink, from the R9 module is it wasn't noise from that. It was actually a loose cable. The 3-wire cable to the camera for power, video, and ground. It was actually loose on the camera connector. I pulled it apart and cleaned the pins with some contact cleaner and bent them slightly just to kind of snug them up in the connector. And it took care of all that black banding in the video. So that was actually that little connector vibrating around. See, I had a number of issues going on. I had a noisy video transmitter. I had a loose cable there. And I needed that pitch servo to be corrected. And tweaking the values for the AHI deal, the IMU ignore rate, seems to have resolved that. You see the AHI will still drift a little bit in a turn, I'm noticing, although it could just be my imagination. We're just going to turn back north and release the sticks. We released them now. And yeah, if there's any drift there, it's not an issue. It's barely even noticeable. So once again, I'm totally happy with that. Even in the wind, the little airplane seems to be flying fairly smooth. So yeah, I guess we're just going to cruise around. Maybe throw on a little bit of music and fly around and enjoy the airplane. For all the reasons that I like to fly it before. It's just a really fun little FPV cruiser. Little sport plane, kind of. I like to imagine it's sort of the same qualities that you would have if it was full scale little light sport aircraft, just cruising around. Nice little autopilot in it. Decent video, decent radio link with the R9. Though I may replace that at some point, but I kind of like the way I have the R9MM receiver, and it's completely embedded in the rudder. The receiver itself, as well as its antenna, is completely embedded in the foam and the leading edge of the rudder. So there's absolutely zero drag whatsoever. It's kind of got a little pocket cut out, and it's nested down in there, and the foam's taped back over. So it'd be a little bit of work to replace it with something different, but I don't know. I'll just keep flying this until I have a reason to replace it, because it does what I want it to do. It cruises around. Little medium range cruiser. One thing that kind of crossed my mind, you notice the AHI drift. I've noticed it's coming back a little bit. You can see it now on the horizon. It's a little bit leaned over to the left. Anytime it drifts, it's always to the left. It never drifts to the right. I'm kind of wondering if I don't maybe just need to recenter the board, relevel the board rather. Recalibrate the accelerometers. I guess I should do that before my next flight. Just to rule out things that I can rule out. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way it flies though, and got all the other little nuances squared away rather. Screwed away. So I can just kind of focus on enjoying the airplane again. So it's really flying extremely well with INAV 3.0. And the video is as clean and good as it should be. Kind of checking out the water in the bayou there. I'm cruising at 120 feet of altitude right now, which should be enough to clear the tallest trees around, but I do like to have a little bit more altitude when I'm flying over the trees. Especially along the bayou there's some kind of taller trees. But we seem to have enough altitude to not worry about it just yet. Or for now, I should say. And I'm really liking how that little deadband using the curve on my pan servo works. It just lets the pan servo settle down. There's just like the jumper, the Radio Master sliders, even though they are improved. And I'm flying with the TX16S Max, the last one they sent me, the nice red and silver with the leather grips. Even this one with the improved newest version of the sliders, they do still have a little bit of kind of wiggle room right around the center detent. So I just kind of like to set up that little deadband using a curve, and it just lets my pan servo settle down better. So my nephew leaving the house. Turn and follow him around a ways. As far as I know, I believe he's leaving going towards town, so he should follow the same road that we just flew down. So yeah, back to the deadband thing, just to kind of help center the pan servo. I do the same thing with my other airplanes. There's a bird flying. I use the same curve on the tilt servo as well as the pan on some of my other planes, and it works well. So if anyone would like to see a video on that, although it's very simple, nothing complicated or too exciting whatsoever, but if anyone would like to see a video, I can make one. Just maybe drop a comment below or whatever. Mention it. If enough people ask, I'll do it. It would literally be a video just a couple of minutes long. See another vehicle coming out of the road there. A turn following along the bayou. Notice I've gained a little bit more altitude now. I'm flying around 200 or so feet. Just so I don't have to worry about losing altitude in the turns, which does happen at times. Now they're crossing the bayou on the bridge. We're going to go over the flood levee to the highway. But yeah, cruising at a little bit more altitude like this at 200 or so feet, that allows me to look around and focus on what I'm looking at with the pan servo without worrying too much about running into some trees. And I think that's my nephew's truck up the road there. He should be turning right onto the other road, heading towards town. Yep. So we're cruising at about 27 miles per hour ground speed. 28. Without a tilt servo, it's a little bit harder to keep the airplane level and keep an eye on him at the same time. Yeah, he's cruising a little bit slower than we are. So I'm just kind of veering off to the side of the roadway here just so I can see him without banking the airplane. But yeah, just kind of cruising around like this, taking in the scenery, finding stuff to look at, roads to follow, and vehicles to follow and chase, and cows to count. Count the cows, there they are. You have to pause the video to do it because I'm not flying around counting cows. But yeah, just that's kind of what this airplane excels at. Just some nice, easy sport flying, enjoying the view, enjoying the airplane, enjoying the way it flies. Just pretty enjoyable experience. See, I'm kind of looking at those clouds now. We had some rain in the area earlier today, but for the most part, we missed it all. It's caught a little bit of light rain. Dried up pretty quick. But as far as I know, I don't believe there's going to be any more rain today, although it is forecast every day for the entire 10-day forecast. At least some chance in the low to mid range for percentages, rather. Kind of makes the wind unpredictable. The wind actually kicked up pretty high earlier today. I wasn't sure I'd be able to fly today before dark, but luckily it has calmed down and here we are flying. And I do want to point out how well the cruise mode is working here, holding altitude. You remember when we first started turning, looking at the vehicles over the bayou and the bridge out there, we were at 200 feet. And I've just been using the rudder and the aileron to kind of steer the airplane around and work in the pan servo. And we are still very much cruising at 200 feet altitude. It's doing an extremely good job of holding that set altitude. Speaking of that, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to fly north right up here. You see this little dirt road coming up? Kind of right over there where the trees stop and the field starts. And if you get up here, it's just kind of between the two fields. I'm going to fly north to the other end of this road. That road actually runs directly north and south. It's along the section line. I'm going to fly north and follow that road south. And I'm going to use that just kind of as my course marker over the ground, because I know it's a straight line path on the ground. I'm going to try to get the airplane cruising along that straight line as best I can, and we're going to see how well it'll hold that course. We're going to just let it fly. I don't know, I guess it's what, a mile or so that it can go before it ever gets to the end of that roadway. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of set a course following this little roadway right down here. We should be pointing directly south, and of course it may be crabbing into the wind a bit. I believe the wind is blowing from sort of the southeast. So yeah, I'm kind of just going to leave it set on this course. I'm not going to touch the stick. I'm going to see how well it holds its course. I am going to adjust the course a little bit with the rudder right now, just to push the nose back over toward the road, because we started out, we were not running directly north and south. Just gonna kind of correct and get as close to on course with that road as I can. I'll let you know when I quit adjusting things and leave the sticks alone. So now we're hands off. We're gonna see, now we may be veering a little bit to the right of the road there. It's kind of hard to tell with the wind, and the nose is not sitting directly over the roadway, but it's more focused on the course over the ground than I am the actual heading. So we're holding a course right now. We're not holding a heading. We're actually holding a course across the ground using GPS. And once again, we're still deadlocked on 200 feet. And even though the airplane's getting rocked around right now, you can see I've still not touched the sticks. It's getting bumped around in the wind, and you can see it making little corrections, but it's definitely holding a course on that roadway. So I'm 100% happy with that. And you see there is actually a little curve in the road there once it gets to the trees. But if we allow it to keep following, the corner of those woods directly ahead should be still on that same property line and along the same course. So we're just going to let it fly all the way to the corner of those trees and see if it stays on course. But as far as I can tell, it definitely is, and I'm thoroughly impressed with its ability to hold altitude. And I guess I'll be able to check the trim on the elevator servo once I land. But whatever's going on, it's working 100%. Kind of noticing some banding in the video coming back. Kind of wondering if that's maybe one of my loose cables acting up again. All right, there we are, still following the road at the corner of the trees. So that is a success. I guess I'm going to go ahead and call it here. Been flying around for 18 minutes or so. I do want to check out those cables again, those connectors. I may actually swap out some of those connectors, recrimp some new ones. I would hate to lose a video. Out here, lose the camera. Have to let the autopilot fly it back. Speaking of that, I'm going to go ahead and test my return to home.
Return to launch. Return to launch.
And you see I'm using the climb first
Battery critical.
in a spiral pattern. And it's going to climb to 300 feet before it sets a course for home, which it did just fine. It actually pulled a few amps during that climb. You see it kind of threw up a battery critical warning. The voltage dipped enough, and it's because I'm losing the lithium ions. These are NCR 18650 cells, the Titan pack, which is the same cells as the Zod 4S 18650 pack, so 3500 milliamp hours. But they don't like the high amp draw, and the propeller that I have on here does pull a few amps if you pull the power on, so it'll make the voltage dip enough to throw up a warning. But this is not really anything to be concerned about. So yeah, return to home seems to be working totally as expected. Now I'm not totally sure what direction the wind is blowing. It doesn't appear to be blowing much on the ground.
Cruise mode.
I'm gonna go ahead and lose a little bit of altitude. I want to compare how the wind speed is. I want to compare my ground speed flying both east and west once we get a little bit closer to the ground, and then we're going to see which way we're going to land. So I guess we're going to get down 100 feet or so and take a note of our ground speed once we level off. So we're going to release the stick at, I think that was about 102 I released the stick. We'll see how that works. Okay, so we're holding about 38 miles an hour here. You notice we are getting bumped around a fair bit. Yeah, that banding in the video is getting even worse. So it's probably that same connector acting up. So we had 38 miles an hour flying that way. Now we're going to fly back this way. And yeah, we're doing 29, 30. So I thought the wind was blowing from the southeast. Maybe it's blowing from the southwest. So I guess we're going to land going this way. So I'm going to go ahead and drop back to acro.
Altitude hold off.
So no, that banding is actually with the throttle. It's interesting. I don't know. I may still swap out some of the electronics on here. But yeah, I've definitely got a crosswind component here. I can feel it kind of banking into the wind right now. I'll kind of probably end up crabbing my landing once I do get a little bit closer to the runway. I should probably correct my course before I get there. The runway's wide enough that we can kind of land this way if we need to. Go ahead and cut power, start my glide, level the wings, and crab a bit. And oh, almost flipped it. That'll work though.
Manual.
So we'll go back to manual mode. We'll taxi back towards the shed.
Battery critical.
Or maybe we won't. We're in the tall grass. Yeah, we'll go ahead and end it there.
Engines disarmed. Acro mode.
So there's our flight summary. And we can shut that off. And we'll go ahead and end the video. So thank you for watching this one. I'm not sure what else I'll post with this particular little plane. Everything seems to be squared away. I guess maybe we'll just fly it some more. Maybe try to clean up that video noise once again, which I thought it was solved, but apparently it's not. Maybe some more filtering. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But in the meantime, we'll get to some more projects as we have time to do so. So thank you for watching this one. Keep an eye out for what's to come.